Hi, Bob Odell here with a presentation that I wish I had seen when I first started investigating Israel. Why is Israel embroiled in world conflict? So if you're a visual person like I am, you'd like to know where things are. And where is Israel on this map? In that red circle. And that red circle happens to be at the intersection of three major continents. And if you really think about it, that red circle is at the center of the world. And as we zoom in here, we see that Israel is part of the Middle East as well. The land in which Israel now resides has had many different names over the years. First, it was named Canaan. Then when the Israelites took possession of the land thousands of years ago, it became known as Israel. After the Romans conquered it in 135, they renamed it Palestine. But the name that stayed with that land in the years that would follow would be the Holy Land. And then since 1948, it has been known once again as Israel. Now, where in this picture is Jerusalem? Well, Jerusalem is at the center of Israel. And if Israel is at the center of the world, then Jerusalem is also at the center of the world. But don't take my word for it, because God says it's true. Thus says the Lord God, "This is Jerusalem. I have set her at the center of the nations, with lands around her." In another place, the word navel is used. The navel is at the center of gravity of the human body. And what, pray tell, is at the center of Jerusalem? The Temple Mount. And the Temple Mount has significance for the three major religions of the world. First in history, about 4,000 years ago, with the purchase by King David from the Jebusites and the construction of the temple, its importance was established in the Jewish tradition. Next, about 2,000 years ago, with its centrality in Jesus' life and his death and resurrection, its importance in the Christian tradition was established. Finally, with the building of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in 637 AD, it has been part of the Muslim traditions as well. But now we come to the issue of world conflict, because there is conflict at multiple levels about Israel and its borders, and does it have a right to exist? There's conflict about Jerusalem. Is it recognized as the capital of Israel or not? And there is conflict about the Temple Mount. Was it really Jewish? Who owns it? Who is allowed to pray there? And there are many other issues involved. The Palestinian issue, human rights complaints, settlements, walls between Palestinians and Jews, rockets being fired, terrorism, and human shields. Now, there are many positive factors as well. Israel is a democracy. It has a strong court system where you can get a fair trial. It has been known for great technology and for its disaster recovery work in places like Nepal and Haiti and more. But what is all this big mess about? In my opinion, all the conflict boils down to one issue, one simple question. Does God have the right to choose a certain family and give them a key piece of land forever? We are going to look at each of these 5 items in sequence. First, let us look at the issue of God. Now, you may not believe that God exists, but we who believe in God see God using Israel to show that he exists to all of us. Did you know that no people in the history of the world has gone into exile and then come back to remake their own country? And the Jewish people did this not just once in their history, but twice. The first time after 70 years in Babylonia, and the second time after 1,878 years of dispersion among the nations. And the Bible even predicts this. In Isaiah 66:8, God says, "Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? Can a land be born in one day?" And this happened in November 29th, 1947, when the United Nations voted to establish a Jewish homeland. The Jewish homeland was born on that day by a full vote of the UN. It was completely legal. Isaiah continues, "Can a nation be brought forth all at once?" That happened too. On May 14th, 1948, when this new Jewish homeland began to govern itself and issued its own name, they called themselves Israel. The verse in Isaiah concludes, "And as soon as Zion travailed, she also brought forth her sons." That Zion travailing, that sounds a lot like the Holocaust, doesn't it? Well, that was then, but what about the future? Well, God says that in the future, it will come about in that day that I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will be severely injured, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it. What this is saying is that whether you believe in God or not, this nation is not going away. This land is not going away, and this city is not going away. It will continue to be the source of world conflict until all things are brought to completion. But why the conflict? Well, let's move to the next item. Does God have the right to choose a certain family and give them a key piece of land forever? Is it fair? Is God fair to choose one particular family? It's a reasonable question. I would point out that to be chosen does not make you better, certainly not automatically. And it certainly doesn't make your life easier. You could ask the Jews about that. But for those of us who are not Jews, there is a sweetener. Because God says to Abraham, "And I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse." God understands that it's not easy to deal with the fact that he has chosen a certain family and not yours. But he says, for those of you that have not been chosen, I'm going to bless you if you will bless them. And conversely, the one who curses you, I will curse. In other words, God will make it clear what his choice is, and he will guide us to try to make the right decision by the blessing and the curses. Item number 3. Does God have the right to choose a certain family? I think this topic is epitomized no better than with the person who tried to destroy more Jews than any other person in history, Adolf Hitler. Hitler hated the Jews because of something he saw in them that he saw as being diametrically opposed to his own worldview, in which the strong rule over the weak. Hitler said that the 10 Commandments have lost their validity. Conscience, he said, is a Jewish invention. Hitler wanted to kill every Jew because of the Jewish spirit within them. If one little Jewish boy survives without any Jewish education, with no Jewish synagogue and no Hebrew school, it's in his soul, said Hitler. It has been there from the beginning, and there is no Jew, not a single one, that does not personify it, he said. Now, what was that corrupting force on the world of the Jewish spirit, in his opinion? The Jewish belief that all people are equal under God. And secondly, the belief that people ought to live freely as much as possible. Yes, abiding within certain commandments, but otherwise living freely. Hitler hated equality and freedom. He wanted to rule. He wanted to control. Now, what about the land? Israel as a Jewish homeland is the center of the Arab conflict today. Because the Arab leaders, not necessarily all the Arab people, but the Arab leaders will not recognize a Jewish state of any kind and of any size in the Middle East. Golda Meir, one of the early prime ministers of Israel, once said, "We will never have peace until the Arabs love their children more than they hate us. Not only are Arab children taught that Jews have come into their homeland and stolen their land, but they are taught that to be a hero means to kill at least one Jew, any Jew, before you die. Arabs do not recognize a Jewish state of any size. If Hitler hated the Jews as a family, then the Arab conflict extends to opposing the family on the land. Finally, does God have the right to choose a certain family and give them a key piece of land forever? This is where the Christians often fall, because many Christians believe that Jews lost their inheritance when they denied Jesus as the Messiah, and that the promises of Israel are now owned by the church. Now let me say a few things about that. First, the New Testament tells us that Jesus coming to die was God's idea and plan from the beginning, that the decision was already made before the foundation of the world. Jesus also said, "No man takes my life from me. I give it willingly." But what about this idea that the Jews lost their inheritance when they rejected Christ? It comes back to the nature of God. Do you believe that God will stand by his promises when he says in Genesis 17, "I will give you and to your descendants after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God"? The main question here is the nature of God. Will he stand by his promise and do what he has promised to do? And we as Christians, how should we think of ourselves? The New Testament says that Christians are the wild olive branches that are grafted into the rich root of the Jewish olive tree. So as Christians, we are part of God's inheritance, but not naturally. We are grafted in. That which is grafted in does not abolish and replace that which is already there. It just becomes part of what is already there. We Christians are the wild branches. So why Israel? Why is Israel embroiled in world conflict? To showcase the nature of God to the world. To show what God cares about. When we look at Israel, we can see that God exists. God is a God of people and family. That God sees certain land as strategically placed, and we must allow him to take and use a small part of the world, at the very center of the world, for his own purposes. And finally, God never breaks his promises. To me, all this boils down to one simple word: love. God is love. We started by asking why Israel is embroiled in world conflict, and we end in love. Why Israel? Because God needed a family and a bit of land to showcase his love to the world forever.